Welcome to Business Authority Radio, bringing you insights from today's thought leaders, professionals, and influencers. With your hosts, Neil Howe and Craig Williams.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my guest is Jeffrey B. Kahn. Now, what could be worse than having the IRS or the Department of Justice or state tax agency chasing after you? Well, tax trouble doesn't mean that you're bad, and neither does it mean that you're beyond getting help or having hope. Well, Hope is here with me today as I have today's guest, like I said, Jeffrey B. Kahn. He's a board-certified tax attorney and CPA, and he helps those people who have tax issues with the IRS and state tax agencies. Kahn is the principal attorney of the law offices of Jeffrey B. Kahn, PC, and head of the Kahn Tax Law team. He has more than 30 years of experience in resolving tax problems with the best possible result by effectively defending against criminal and civil actions and inquiries by the IRS and state tax agencies. His representation includes protecting taxpayers from domestic and international tax issues not yet detected by the government, including unreported foreign bank accounts and unreported cryptocurrency transactions. He also represents cannabis businesses in overcoming the legal challenges they face in operations and tax planning to help minimize their income tax liabilities. Well, we have definitely got a lot of interesting subjects to talk about today, so welcome to the show, Jeffrey Kahn.
Yes, thank you, Neil, for having me. Looking forward to speaking with you and trying to answer questions that I'm sure many people have in these areas.
Definitely, and I want to get to the content as soon as possible, but just give us a quick background of your last 30 years, how you got involved in becoming a tax attorney, and really what kind of clients that you help right now.
Well, I think it kind of runs in my DNA because I was first a CPA. I studied accounting and kind of did that to please my dad. My dad's a CPA. And so accomplished that, worked for a few years in accounting and said, what I really want to do is practice law. And it just seemed to be a natural to go into tax law, being that I am a CPA, have that tax background, and I bridge now the legal education, being an attorney, advocating positions for my clients. So I feel very comfortable working with numbers. I feel very comfortable with writing. I feel very comfortable with speaking and advocating. So it just seems to be a natural for me.
Well, we all need that person in our corner that knows their numbers, because it is a hard subject for many people to get their head around. So we're very thankful for you, Jeff, that you have that ability. So tell me a little bit more about the kinds of clients that you help.
Well, people who come to me are people who, clearly have tax problems. Either they're under some kind of audit investigation or criminal investigation, or perhaps they owe the IRS or any state tax agency and need a solution as to how do I deal with these agencies so they stop levying me and they stop doing other collection action on me. I just want to get them off my back, want to get a fresh start. So that's where I come in. And through my angle of accounting and law, I'm able to look at it in a different way and come up with a workable solution, because there is a solution for everything. Sometimes it may not be as attractive as someone may like it to be, but the bottom line is doing nothing is always the worst scenario. And so besides people coming to me with tax problems, again, I'm getting people who are either involved or looking to be involved in the cannabis business, people who are coming to me recognizing, hey, I was involved, or I'm still involved in doing Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency transactions, or I've been involved and currently involved in foreign accounts. And I don't believe that I disclosed everything properly to the tax agencies. So, Jeff, here's what I've done. What is it that I need to do to fix any deficiencies? What is it that I need to do to minimize my tax liabilities? And that's how I come in.
So let's talk about those three different things that you mentioned there. We've got the cannabis, we've got the cryptocurrency, which are relatively new, and then we've got the foreign bank accounts and people doing business in foreign countries. So let's start with the cannabis. Tell us about some of the issues that people are having in regards to the tax and the cannabis industry.
Okay, well, Neil, I'm glad that you brought that up as the first topic, because being based out here in California, it's a very, very hot market. I know that in California for some time now, medical marijuana has been legal, and starting with January 1st, 2018, it's legal on a recreational basis. The state has established at the state level the taxation and collection of the taxes from cultivating and selling cannabis. And it's become a very huge market. I know it's projected that in California this year, $6.7 billion in sales from cannabis is to be generated. And that's, going to equate to a lot of tax revenues in the state of California. So, it's a very, very big market. And unfortunately, cannabis is still a controlled substance that's illegal under federal law. So, given the disparity between how the feds look at cannabis and how states such as the state of California looks at it, definitely need to have legal representation if you're involved or looking to get involved in cannabis. The other unfair aspect about this type of business is how it's taxed. Because under federal law, given that cannabis is a controlled substance, even though it's an illegal activity under federal law, you still have to report the income for tax purposes to IRS. And the only type of deduction that you're able to offset against that income is cost of goods sold. So if, let's say, like you sold cannabis for $1,000 and your cost in acquiring that was $800, then you would have $200 of profit that you would have to report to IRS with no other deductions allowed on that. And so if somebody is not doing things right, not keeping the proper records and stuff like that, and IRS knows that you received $1,000 for selling cannabis, but you have no other backup, no other substantiation for cost of goods sold or whatever, you now have $1,000 worth of profit to report to IRS. And considering you had to pay for the cannabis in the first place to sell it, and you may have some other expenses, and now you have taxes, in that situation, you probably have a loss.
Yeah, that is certainly not good. So you need to be keeping good records, which I don't know, maybe some in the cannabis business might slip their mind a little bit. But tell me, is there a lot of money to be made? There's $6.7 billion. Are people still making a lot of money in the cannabis business in California?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a very profitable business. The problem is that you've got people who are following the laws and they're licensed and they're meeting all the requirements. And yes, they're going to make a lot of money, especially if they have somebody like me, a board certified tax attorney as part of their team to make sure that they're minimizing, their taxes and, of course, following all the rules set by the state. And that's also very important from a perspective of protection from the feds, because even though cannabis is a controlled substance and legal at the federal level, the Department of Justice seems to turn the cheek or not look to prosecute state licensed cannabis businesses that are following the state laws. So if there are people involved in cannabis, they're not licensed by the state, kind of doing things on the black market, stuff like that, those businesses stand to run afoul of not only the feds, but also the state in pursuing criminal prosecution, shutting those businesses down, that kind of stuff. So it's really, really important, not only from a tax perspective, but also just from the ability to do business, that anyone who's involved in cannabis, that you do it the right way, get licensed, with the state, follow the rules, and have the proper representation to make sure you're not running astray.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the misconceptions that people, maybe even outside of California, that don't necessarily know all the rules and just think, hey, cannabis is hot, I'm going to go to California and start a cannabis business? What misconceptions do they have about the rules and regulations governing that?
Well, I think there's, people out there thinking, wow, cannabis is a $6.7 billion industry in California. I want to go ahead and grab a piece of that. And they think having no expertise or experience in growing or selling cannabis and no idea what it takes in the way of working capital, investment, and licenses, people think, oh, you know what? I could just put my name out there and try and be some kind of
Hello, Jeff. Lost you.
Any type of business, even any kind of traditional brick and mortar retail business or whatever. In order to get ahead and be successful, there is something that you need to bring to the table, expertise. Clearly, there's a financial investment that needs to be made. If it was as easy as that you could just wake up one morning and say, I want to be a successful cannabis entrepreneur, well, then everyone would be able to do that.
Right. And it does seem attractive because there is a lot of money to be made in it, but you do have to follow the rules and regulations. So let's switch subjects right here and go to cryptocurrency, because that is, again, another hot industry that people are jumping in, and they, need to know the tax repercussions. It's something that is relatively new, and people just don't know exactly what is involved with cryptocurrencies right now. So tell us a little bit about the tax implications of cryptocurrency, and specifically Bitcoin, which is the biggest so far.
Sure. So basically, when I talked about cryptocurrency, there's like all different forms or types of cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is the most popular, and Bitcoin is managed in an exchange located in San Francisco, right here in California. And so with cryptocurrency, the taxation of it is if you mine it, when you mine it, how much you ever mine that day has a value on it. You have to pick up the income on mining it. When you sell cryptocurrency, you have to recognize income on the difference between what you sold it for and what you purchased it for. And if the purchase price was more than the selling price, then you're going to have a loss. So it works the same way as having stock in a company, owning shares. When you buy the shares, you have your basis. When you sell the shares, then you subtract your basis from it, and you're going to have to recognize that gain and pay tax on it. So it works the same way. The difference, though, is with stocks, whenever you sell the stock, there would be a reporting to IRS in the form of a 1099, Form 1099. And now the IRS would have record of the transaction. And there's now an independent way for the IRS to verify you're reporting this on your tax return. Up until now, that hasn't been the case with the cryptocurrency. People could freely sell their holdings, and there is no independent reporting to IRS. But that's changing because with Coinbase, they were served with a John Doe summons, which has been upheld by a federal district court, where now Coinbase has to release information on transactions to the IRS. And in reaction to that, Coinbase says, you know what? We're going to start acting just like any other brokerage firm would. And starting with the 2017 calendar year, we're going to report these transactions to IRS. And now the IRS will have the same type of information that they get from brokerage firms on stock sales and stuff like that. And the IRS will be using that information to verify taxpayers are reporting these transactions on their income tax returns.
And that seems to be a big problem right now. I think there was an article out just a couple of weeks ago on CNBC saying that barely anybody was claiming their taxes or paying taxes on their cryptocurrency. We're talking less than 1%.
Yeah, that'd be correct. IRS estimates that there's probably at least 15 times the amount of non-compliance than compliance in this area, because there are special forms that need to be included with the 1040 filing. And IRS is showing under 900 individuals a year are using these forms, yet we know there are hundreds of thousands of people dealing in Bitcoin, and Coinbase itself has identified around 15,000 people who are going to be reported to IRS. So we know even with that number, there, which is probably a conservative number, there's a good 14,000 people who haven't complied at some point, starting with 2013, that the IRS will now know about.
Right. So what are the next steps for those kinds of people? Obviously, this news is getting out within the cryptocurrency market that nobody's paying their taxes, and now the IRS are getting names. So what's the next steps for somebody that's in that position?
Well, anyone who's in that position where they have been involved in Bitcoin, especially if it's before 2017, and they filed returns and they didn't report what they were supposed to, the best thing is to get in touch with a person like me, board certified tax attorney, and take a look at what the exposure is, and quite possibly doing a voluntary disclosure where we are proactive with the IRS. We come forward proactively, and by doing so, avoiding criminal prosecution and getting a break on penalties.
So as far as doing that and being proactive, what is going to happen if people don't take action? Are the IRS going to be able to follow up with all these people in a timely manner?
Yeah, actually, that's what will end up happening. I mean, the Bitcoin, virtual currencies, it's following the same path as foreign accounts. For a long time, people thought they could hold foreign accounts and never be detected by IRS. And starting with the mid 2000s, like around 2004, that whole landscape turned. And by 2010, there's no place that you could go ahead and hide assets in foreign bank accounts. And so I think that's what we're looking at here with Bitcoin, that over the next few years, the people who are proactive and are ahead of IRS, they're going to fare a lot better than people who say, no, I don't think the IRS is ever going to find me. And now you've got IRS special agents investigating you and the U.S. Department of Justice looking to criminally prosecute you because of your failure to report these Bitcoin transactions.
Now, how hard is it with the volatility in the Bitcoin or cryptocurrency markets? How hard is it to keep track of all these gains and losses, and know what you have to report to the IRS? Does it take a lot of time?
Well, bottom line is you think of it as like a day trader. If you're a day trader trading in stock, you're going to have just, hundreds, maybe even thousands of transactions in a year. And yes, you've got to keep track of each one to get credit for that basis, because otherwise IRS, they know what the gross proceeds are, and they'll say, oh, you have $1 million in gross proceeds for the year, when in fact you're a day trader and all you've done is reinvest the same $1,000 over and over and over again. So yeah, it is really, really important for people who are actively involved in these virtual currencies to keep track of all their transactions. And that's another benefit of having access to somebody like myself. Given my tax background, my accounting background, I can put together systems and provide assistance and people who are dealing with these virtual currencies so that it's very easy to keep track of the transactions and to report accurately to the IRS so that you do get credit for what you deserve in the way of basis and things like that.
Yes, it's extremely important just to follow those rules and make sure that you have your books in order. So come tax time, you are prepared and you're not going to be met with any surprises. So we have touched on the foreign bank accounts just a little bit, but tell us a little bit about what you do with foreign bank accounts and how this new 2018 tax reform has changed things in the foreign markets.
Yeah, sure. So as you know, we went through a major tax change that came into effect 2018. Unfortunately, no changes were made in terms of reporting foreign accounts, the penalties for failing to report foreign accounts, the requirement to report your worldwide income. All that has remained in place. So, there's nothing new with that avenue. What is clearly established is that foreign banks don't want to be locked out of the U.S. financial markets. So they are following the law that was set in 2010, which was the Foreign Account Compliance Tax Act. And under FATCA, as it is abbreviated to be and known as, foreign banks are reporting U.S. account holder information, which it goes to, eventually gets to the IRS. And IRS is using that information, matching it up to U.S. Individual income tax returns to make sure taxpayers who have foreign bank accounts are reporting those accounts and reporting the income. And where they're not doing that, they are being audited, they are being investigated. The IRS is taking criminal action against these taxpayers. And so if you're in a situation where IRS still hasn't got to you, they haven't discovered you yet, now's the time especially to come forward. And there's some very, very good programs out there that the IRS has where the penalties are reduced and criminal prosecution can be avoided. But the key is you have to be proactive. If the IRS has already found you, even in just a random independent audit, you can't get into any of these programs.
Mm-hmm. Well, talk to me a little bit about the solutions. We've definitely talked a lot about the problems in those three different areas of cannabis, cryptocurrency, and then the foreign markets. But one of the things I liked that you said in your notes here was that you give people a plan of action when they come in and see you.
That's right. That's right. So when somebody meets with me, I provide them with a plan of action. And for those people with tax issues, I call it a tax resolution development plan. And in that session, I review their situation and lay out the plan to resolve their tax problems. They can, then take this information and they can use it to resolve their tax problems on their own, or they can have me and my team implement the plan for them. And I adopt the same approach for people of interest in cannabis businesses and have tax issues and other legal issues specific to the cannabis industry.
Well, I like the fact that you go out of your way and give a plan that they can take and go and represent themselves if they feel that they have the knowledge and ability to do that. But I'm sure that you find that just because of the time and effort that you put in up front in developing that plan, that you develop that trust also, and people just want you to go ahead and take care of it for them.
That's right. That's right. Plus, another thing is because I do this all the time, I'm dealing with the same government officials, and I recognize how the government officials are going to react or what procedure they're going to follow. So that's another advantage that I have on implementing the plan is, I'm dealing with the players on the other side of the field. So that's also another advantage of going down that route versus, okay, I have the plan, I know how to play American football, and I'm just going to now take the ball and run with it.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about your business. I know that you cover a large area in California with multiple offices. So tell us where you are and how we can best get in touch with you.
Sure. So my main office or corporate headquarters is here in Orange County in Irvine. And I do have 3 other locations in Southern California and 3 locations in the San Francisco Bay Area. And basically the way to reach out and meet with me and get more information is go to my website, which is www.kahntaxlaw.com. That's KAHNTAXLAW.com. And there you'll see the office locations and addresses and phone numbers and stuff. I can also be reached calling me on my toll-free line at 866-494-6829. Again, that toll-free number is 866-494-6829.
Well, Jeffrey, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. I'm sure we could have talked for a lot longer about each one of those subjects that you briefly touched on, the cannabis, the cryptocurrency, and the foreign tax issues. Like I said, I love the fact that you give people a plan of action so that they know, not only do they know what they can do themselves, but they also know if they do hire you that you have a plan that you're going to follow, and they can follow along with that. So I appreciate all the information that you gave us today, and thanks very much for being a guest on the Business Authority Radio Show.
All right. Thank you for having me, Neil.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to Business Authority Radio with Neil Howe and Greg Williams. To learn more about the resources mentioned in today's show, or to listen to past episodes, visit businessauthorityradio.com.